Morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where in the world you are. Welcome to our fourth talk in our Ask an Entrepreneur series. My name is Tendai, and today I have the pleasure of announcing that Garrett Gee, who is the founder and designer of Scan Inc., will be joining us. And Garrett will be talking about innovative social media strategies for entrepreneurs. Before I introduce Garrett and hand over to him, I'll just tell you a little bit about Yen and go over some webinar basics in case you're new to our series. The Youth Employment Network, Yen, is a partnership of the UN, the ILO, and the World Bank. Our aim is to educate, engage, and motivate actors to provide improved employment opportunities for youth. This event is brought to you by the Yen Marketplace. The Marketplace is an online community for youth employment practitioners and young entrepreneurs. It's a place where they can go to find, exchange ideas, resources, and partnerships. The Marketplace offers services such as e-coaches for young entrepreneurs, as well as business idea competitions and links to funding opportunities. We presently have a membership of 1,800 members, and you can check out our website. It's www.yenmarketplace.org. So some quick webinar basics for those of you who have not used this particular software before. You will see there's a small control panel which has this button. If you click on it, it will allow you to maximize the webinar presentation so it fills your entire active screen. This button is for you to expand your participant control panel, and when you do, you'll see this larger view. Everyone at the moment is muted except for myself and Garrett, and we do this so that we can reduce background noise. However, during the Q&A session, you can, if you'd like to speak, you can raise your hand, and to do this, you click on this button. Once you've raised your hand, one of our facilitators will unmute you, and once you're unmuted, it'll show up here, and you can go ahead and ask your question. In the meantime, if you have any technical problems, if you have any questions you'd like to post, you can use the chat, and one of our facilitators, Diane or Sharon, will respond to your question. And you can also put questions for Garrett here, and we'll try to get to as many of them as possible during our Q&A session. So we'll be doing a couple of polls during the event, and the first one is a question to all of you asking you where are you located. So you should be able to see a poll, and if you can just please click on which country, which continent you're in. Just 5 more seconds and then we'll close the poll. Okay, let's close the poll. So it looks like once again we have a strong amount of participation from Asia. Most people are North America. This is a first. And 25% are in Africa, and we have a few more members in South America and the Caribbean. Great. So welcome to everybody. And I would like to now introduce Garrett. Garrett is the founder and designer of Scan, as I already mentioned. Scan is a popular web mobile application that had over 10 million downloads in its first year. Garrett has successfully fundraised 1.7 million from Google Ventures, Lady Gaga, and other top venture capitalists. He and his wife Jessica currently reside in San Francisco, where they enjoy soccer, fixies, and travel. So over to you, Garrett.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really excited how all across the globe everybody is located. I think that's really fun. That's really exciting. I myself, I love traveling. Any opportunity I can get to travel, whether it's for just fun and vacation or whether it's for business, I always take it because I think I think I've had the opportunity to be to every continent on the world now. My most recent was I had the opportunity for business to go to Africa, just the northern part of Africa. I was in Morocco, but so it's really fun and exciting for me to see so many people from all over the world. I think, let's see here. I want to make sure you guys can see my screen.
We can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. And so, yeah, right here what I have pulled up is the Scan website. The URL is scan.me. But before I get even too much into Scan, I kind of, because for, you know, the EM marketplace is all about entrepreneurship and creating jobs, creating opportunities, creating small businesses, stuff like that. I wanted to give you a little bit of introduction as to how it started for me, because I think that could definitely inspire and teach you how you could follow the same path and do something very similar to what I've done. Because I was just telling a friend last night that he asked me, how long have you been doing tech entrepreneurship for? How long have you been kind of like, I don't know, my friends kind of consider me kind of a geeky, techie, nerdy type of guy now. However, they were very surprised when I explained to them that just 2 years ago, I had to have a friend set up my email for me. I had a friend set up my Facebook for me. Like, I didn't know how to do any of that stuff because I was just so new to computers and everything technical. But once they introduced me to things like web development and web design and, you know, coding and programming and Photoshop and all that stuff, I loved it so much, and I just started to really obsess over it that, you know, after obsessing over it day after day after day, I started to get better and better to the point where I could either build websites or iPhone apps for other people. And once I got comfortable enough with that, I felt like I could build websites and iPhone apps even for myself and try to start an actual business. And so I created this presentation deck that hopefully you can see fine. And what this presentation deck, it's kind of, one, an introduction to what Scan is, but also this is the same presentation deck. In the introduction they mentioned that I raised $1.7 million from people like Lady Gaga, from Google, even some people from Facebook, and that was really exciting. And this same deck, this same presentation slide is the same presentations that I showed to those investors that I showed to Google to help motivate them to believe in Scan and then, you know, fund us for the $1.7 million. So when you're looking at this slide deck, you can, one, learn more about Scan, but also, like I said, you'll be able to see what the investors saw or what I showed to the investors to help raise money for my business. So the one-line explanation of what we're trying to accomplish at Scan is we want to take as many digital actions and enable those in the real world. And so an example of that would be Pinterest. Hopefully a lot of you have heard about Pinterest right now. It's a growing, popular website. And if you're going to do anything on Pinterest, if you're going to like something or repin something or find something, you're always doing that at your computer. But I think it would be a sad life if you spent your whole life just sitting behind your computer. So we wanted to give people the opportunity to take digital actions like interacting on Pinterest, Twitter, Facebook, whatever it is, but out in the real world. And so here on the left you see a QR code, and by scanning this QR code with our app that we created, you can then pin something on Pinterest. And so I'll show you another example. Here on the left you see you scan a Twitter QR code and you can follow something on Twitter. Or in the middle you see, I want to buy this t-shirt, so I can scan this t-shirt or the QR code on the t-shirt and actually purchase the t-shirt from my mobile phone. Or if you use Foursquare, I can scan this QR code on, say, a storefront window and check in to that, you know, to that business on Foursquare. And so this next slide just again shows you how the user can scan a QR code with an app and take an action. And so this slide kind of broke down how it works technically. The next slide showed look, this is the products that we've built. We have mobile apps, and then we have the website. The mobile apps is for consumers, and we've had 25 million people download it. And then the website is for businesses to create their own QR codes, or individuals to create their own QR codes. And that's where we have about 87,000 people doing that. Anyway, so when I was showing this to investors, I would show them some stats to show how ever since we started, we've been growing. We started this company about 2 years ago, and when I say we, it was me and 2 of my friends. We were going to school together, had this idea, and so the 3 of us built these products ourselves and started this business. And so yeah, as I click through these, you can kind of see the content and what I would show to investors. And then the last slide was saying, look, here's some impressive stats and here's an impressive product, but at the end of the day, it's all about the team. Because if you have a very talented team, then you can build impressive stuff, you can work really hard, you can find the right partnerships and network, and really find success. And so we were sure to talk a lot about the team and who they would be investing their money in. And so sure enough, we were able to raise $1.7 million from a whole list of really good investors from all over the world. Many of them in San Francisco. It's kind of the investor hub, but then in New York and then outside of the country as well. And so that's kind of an introduction to Scan. I think if somebody's interested in QR codes or interested in using our product, the very easiest and best way to get started is to just create a QR code of your own. If you go to the website, it's very easy that you can see here we have different options of what type of QR codes you want to create. On my business card, I have a QR code that lets people follow me on Twitter. So I go to social media actions, and then I go to Twitter, and you can see here all I need to do is enter in my Twitter username, and that quickly and easily it creates a QR code for me that I can then save, put on a business card, put on stickers, put on a t-shirt, wherever I want. And the reason why this is really helpful is because so far, kind of getting into social media, if you want people to follow you on YouTube, follow you on Instagram, like you on Facebook, like whatever it is, right now, like 100% of that is happening online if somebody's at their computer, maybe, but more and more is changing from people doing that on their computer, and more people are doing it on their mobile device. Well, QR codes are a very quick way to get people from the real world to your company on their mobile device. And so, you know, in I guess a few more examples of how Scan and I myself use QR codes is we have QR codes that lead directly to our Scan YouTube channel, so that when people scan it, right away it pulls up a video, they can start watching the video, and then once the video is going on, as soon as it's done, they have the opportunity to subscribe to our channel. And so it's kind of like if you've ever been to, say, a party or a conference, or you're at a lunch meeting, usually you meet a lot of people, you develop a relationship, but that relationship kind of needs an extra push to turn into something a little more solid or to stay connected. And so for us, we've always used QR codes when we meet people, saying, hey, it was great to meet you, scan this QR code and you can follow us on Instagram, or you can follow us on Facebook, whatever it is. So I think that's pretty clear about QR codes and how we use them. I'll be excited when we start the Q&A session to see what questions you might have and how I can further answer those questions. But for the rest of the time, let's talk a little more about just social media in general and some best practices. And again, I'll use myself and Scan as the example, what we've done. And so if you can see my web browser here, you'll see, let's see here, one second. Let me set this up. I'm going to slide my browser a little bit so you can kind of see me while I'm explaining this. There we go. Okay. So now you should be able to see me as well as the browser window. Okay. So you can see here I have a number of tabs pulled up, and that's because Scan has accounts or a presence on social media sites, everything from YouTube to Instagram to Facebook to Google+, Twitter, Pinterest, as I mentioned earlier, one of the newer ones. And actually, if you go to my personal site, you'll be able to see that I've actually set up for people who wanted to connect with me an actual page where it shows all the different networks where they can find me. Everything from LinkedIn to my Tumblr blog, Dribbble, which is like Facebook for designers, my WordPress blog, of course Instagram. And so I'd say the first rule or first lesson would be you want to set up a presence on as many different sites as possible. You have to be careful because you don't want to have too many and be spread thin and then not interact or not be very active. If you set up an account on one of these social sites, you definitely want to be active so that if somebody follows you on Twitter, you know, you're sharing useful information, you're interacting, you're having conversation with them, you're asking very good questions, and again, sharing useful information so that it's valuable to actually follow you on Twitter. If they follow you on Twitter and you only post, say, like once a month, then that's not giving a lot of value to them. So you want to be on as many accounts as possible, but you also want to be active. And if I were to say, why do you want to be on as many accounts as possible? I think a lot of people could look at a page like I have pulled up here and think, okay, there's what, 15 or so sites here, and I have a presence on Vimeo and Forced, but I've never heard of, you know, Foursquare, or I've never heard of Supply. And it's because different networks, different social networks have their niches of what personality types use them. But you know, if you have a business, of course you have your niche, but you also want to be able to get a lot of different people in a lot of different interest levels to find out about you. And so that's why for people who are more into videos, you want to have a YouTube channel where they can watch your videos. For people who are more photography or image based, then you want Instagram. But if people prefer text over images, then of course you want to be on Twitter. So just again, an example of how you can reach out to different crowds and different audiences by being on different groups. So yeah, as far as Scan goes, with our YouTube channel, we'll post a video about once a month just because videos are a lot more work. When we do post a video, this is kind of a very specific tip, is we always try to give our videos titles, like this one's called What is a QR Code? And we always try to give our videos titles that we think people will be searching for on Google or on YouTube. Because if nobody had ever heard of Scan before, then nobody's going to search for Scan. But as QR codes have become more popular, then somebody might wonder, what is a QR code? So instead of titling our video Scan, we titled our video, What is a QR code? And that way a lot of people could find it. And thanks to that, you can see we launched this just a year ago, and it already has over 1 million views that people, you know, giving the people the opportunity to see what is Scan about and where can they download the app and what do we do. So that's how we've used YouTube. And then when it comes to Instagram, I really like Instagram personally. I'm a very visual person. I'm the designer behind Scan. So for me, Instagram is a fun way to give people a peek into what is Scan, what is Scan as a product, what is Scan as a company, what is the culture like, what do we believe in. So you can see here we have like quotes that we believe in that we'll post. We have new products that we'll, you know, feature on our Instagram. But then also people are just interested about like interesting companies and interesting lives. And so when we went on our last business trip to England, we posted a lot of pictures of that so that people could see, you know, not only is this a company, but there's people behind this company, and you know, it's fun, and they'll be on TV sometimes, and they work closely with Apple, you know, just other stuff to really show that Scan is company, Scan is people, something that people can, your audience can really connect with. And then the tip I had to share about Facebook was this, that there's so many different, like Facebook is so powerful, there's so many different things you can do with Facebook, but what I have found very useful is to find companies or products that have been similar to my business and see what they do. And so like you can see I follow Evernote, I follow Foursquare, I follow Airbnb, and the reason why I do this is because I'll look through what they're doing and think, oh, that's really helpful or that's really useful, I really like the way they did that, and then I can do something similar and make it my own for my business. And so I'll say, you know, oh, they ask a lot of questions and they get a lot of interaction when they ask those questions. We should start asking more questions on our Facebook page because that really, you know, inhibits a lot of interaction from people. So that's Facebook. Google Plus is a lot newer. From what studies show, there's a lot more interaction on Google Plus internationally than just in the US. And because our app, I mentioned we have 25 million downloads, 50% of those downloads have come from outside the US. And so for us, right as we heard that, we decided to create an account on Google Plus because so much of Google Plus's audience, again, is international. And so we post information about the product here. We did a little webinar of our own on Google Hangout on here just to really jumpstart our Google Plus page. And then, so I'll just share last few things, and then we can get into Q&A, which I'm really excited for. So when it comes to Twitter, Twitter is really interesting because think of it this way. If you have a friend and that friend does nothing but just talk about themselves 24/7, that can get kind of tiresome and seem really self-centered by that friend. And so you want to treat Twitter like a real-life friendship or a real-life conversation where you talk a little bit about yourself to give people an update of what's the latest and greatest with you. But then you also want to talk about your other friends, or you want to talk about kind of things in your space. And so, for example, Scan will say, here's a new product from Scan. Or we'll say, here's a new product from our friends over at Facebook. Or we'll say something like, we'll ask a lot of questions so we can get some conversation going and we can get to know our audience and the people that follow us. And then the last thing I would mention is anytime somebody does talk highly about us or kind of gives a good testimonial about Scan, then we'll retweet that or repost that so that people can, again, hear positive things about Scan, but it's not coming from our mouth ourselves. It's coming from others that have used our product and love our product so that people can see, oh, you know, I'm not the only person using this product, somebody else is, and this is how it benefited them. So again, you want to treat Twitter and really most of your social media, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or whatever else, as real-life relationships, real-life conversations, so that people can see, like, you're a real person, not just a robot or something of the sort. And then the last one I'm going to show you guys, is Pinterest, where Pinterest is probably the most niche of all of them, where Pinterest is about finding inspirational things, and it's very design-minded, where you'll find interior design, you'll find like cooking recipes, you'll find web design, or really like there's a lot of fashion and health stuff on there. And so even though we're a technology company, we don't want to come in and just talk only technology because, like I mentioned, Pinterest is about so many other things. And so what we've done is we come in and we say, look, like, we're a company, but we care about fashion. Or we're a company, but we care about the interior design of our office. Or we're a company, but we, you know, here's an artsy craft thing that we did that, again, is like kind of techy because those are app icons, but we made them out of chalk, or we made it ourselves, and it was very like crafty. And that's something that really speaks to the Pinterest group. So I guess in summary, what I'm trying to say, the point I'm trying to get across is each social media site kind of has a style and a life of its own, and you don't want to mess that up. You want to go in and join it. You want to be a part of it so that people, you know, that have that niche interest or that type of personality can really connect with you and your company and develop that relationship with you. So again, I'm really excited to hear from you guys and start some Q&A. So I think if we're ready, let's do a Q&A.
Thanks, Garrett. That was really very interesting. And we've already been getting lots of questions, and people are saying that they really enjoyed what you're talking about. So it sounds like it's very relevant to our audience.
Oh, that's great. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah. The first question is from Lucas Simao. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He's in Amazon, Brazil. He's one of the ITU Telecom World Young Investors, Young Innovator winners. And he would like to ask you a question about two questions, actually. The first one, he wanted to know, how are you making money with the product if it's free?
So I'll go ahead and answer that question first. And so, like I mentioned a little earlier, there's the two sides to our business. There's the mobile side for consumers. And so anyone around the world can download our app and scan QR codes and barcodes. And that's totally free. We don't make any money from our users. We don't make any money from people downloading our app. Where we do make money is on the website of things, where businesses come to our website and create QR codes and start getting more followers on Twitter or whatever they created the QR code to do. And so from the business side of things, we're charging businesses to create those QR codes. So an example would be this. If I am, say, Disney, and I want to create QR codes and put them around our theme park so people will like us on Facebook, then they come to our website, they pay us a fee to create the QR code, and then that fee is a reoccurring fee. They pay us, a monthly rate to keep that QR code live and working. And then even on, even on top of that, they'll pay a performance fee. So if every 10,000 times the QR code gets scanned, they pay a little bit more. So in summary, we don't make any money from our users using our app. We make money from the businesses creating QR codes on our website. That's a good question.
And the second question, as I mentioned, he's trying to raise money for his project on electronic waste. So he wanted to know more about any suggestions on fundraising and getting into contact with investors.
Oh, that's great. So I have a very good tool to do that. So if you go to AngelList.com, AngelList, it's newer. It's not completely new, but it's definitely newer and growing. And the cool thing is this. The best, or not necessarily the best, but definitely the biggest and most experienced investors all in the tech space and all around the world, whether you're tech, clean energy, product-based manufacturing, whatever industry you're in, there are so many investors located in the U.S., in San Francisco, in other countries, and maybe you don't have that direct connection to them because you're based in, like you said, Amazon, Brazil, which I think is so cool. And so what AngelList is like Facebook, where startups and young companies can connect with investors. And so actually I could even show you, created a profile on AngelList. And although we're now located in San Francisco, before that we were located in a very small town in a place called Utah. And so we didn't know any investors. So we created a company profile page on AngelList that said, this is who we are and this is why you should invest in us. And you can see we had 555 investors follow us and connect with us and say, hey, we would want to hop on a phone call with you or Skype, and we're interested in investing in your company. And that's where we met many of our investors that we ended up raising the $1.7 million from. So AngelList would definitely be my #1 tip or tool for you.
Wow, that's a great tip. Our next question is from Husni Abu Samra. Husni, you should be unmuted. Can you tell us what you're doing and where you're from and your question?
Yeah. Thank you very much for you, Diana and Garrett. I'm from Palestine. I have a startup company called Mobistime. Mobi for mobile, Stein for Palestine. We are a startup company actually, 1 year back we established it. We are pitching for developing applications in Arabic for new parents. Those are the inexperienced. So this is our business actually. We are trying to get investment for this startup. Currently we have over 25 applications on iPhone mainly, but we will develop the new parents applications. This is about our company. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. My question, Gary, thank you very much for the presentation. Actually, your app is great, and currently I'm using it already. So
that's fun.
Yeah. My question is, what is the difference between it and QR reader? And we know that QR reader has been, developed long time ago. So what makes it special? I think QR reader only does. Your application does both for QR and for the old barcodes. This is the addition. But is there anything really interesting? Why you got so much money for that? This is something not new, and you got this new.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. Really cool that you're located where you are, and the business that you're building sounds really interesting. As far as your question, and for those who aren't familiar with the two, I'll show you. Here we're looking at my app, Scan, and then here you're looking at a competing app called QR Reader for iPhone, and you can see they look quite similar. We came out with our app icon, and then they switched theirs to look very similar to us. And I don't want to get too much into the legal stuff, but our investors actually said, hey, they copied you, that's infringement, you should go after them or you should sue them. And to be honest, that's just not my style. That's I don't want to spend my time or my life worrying about that. And so 1 second, real quick. My computer just told me that it might die soon, so I'm going to have to hurry and plug it in. 1 second, real quick.
Okay, never mind.
In the meantime, while we wait for guys to come back, if you type it back in the chat, could you also tell us where you're located and a little bit about what you do?
Okay, are you still there?
Yes, we're all here.
Okay. Very sorry about that. Also, my computer's like, you're going to die in 3 seconds.
No problem.
Okay, so let's see. I was talking about QR Reader for iPhone and Scan, the difference. So a lot of people wanted us to sue or kind of go at them legally, but it just wasn't how I wanted to spend my time. If anything, I want them to do well as well. I know there's companies and people behind that product as well. So I would encourage them to keep working on the product. They have a really high quality product, and I really hope they do well. The difference, though, is they built just an iPhone app, and it kind of, they can make some money off it, but it's not going to be a huge, say, corporation or nothing very disruptive. Whereas with Scan, sure, we have an app and it's similar, but then we also have the website. And as I mentioned before, it's the website where we make a lot of our money. So there's kind of the two sides to our business. There's the app that helps build our name and has made us very popular, but then there's the website where we make money. Whereas with them, they're kind of just half the business. You can think of it as they built just half the table. And so that, I think, was, again, the app's very similar, but the difference maker for investors is they liked what we were doing, on the business side of things and not just the app side of things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, definitely. It's a really good question.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Alton Kua. Alton, you're unmuted. You can go ahead and tell us where you're from and what you do and what your question is.
Hello, Garrett. Can you hear
Hi.
me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. I'm actually from Malaysia. I'm actually doing social media business as an agency and also a columnist for my local entrepreneurs magazine called Entrepreneurs NY. So I do write-ups for entrepreneur stories around Asia.
Wow,
That's
very cool.
basically what I am. Yeah, I have 2 questions here. Your app has about 25 million downloads, which is very impressive. I'm just curious that how do you get the initial high tractions coming into your site to justify the downloads? And the second question is you're talking about your team. You're saying that the team attracts investors to come in and put money in. How do you actually justify the team members to join you in as well? Because in Asia's environment, most startup entrepreneurs, they start up on their own as a solopreneur. And to get someone else to join them is like very hard because most of them, they are not comfortable sharing their ideas with each other in our environment. Or they claim that somebody will steal the ideas and take it as their own. And also that the perks here is not so attractive for someone to join a startup. They will just join a company like multinational to give them a higher benefit. So maybe Garrett, can you share from your end? How does that work for your businesses?
Yeah, for sure. So my team, so it's kind of similar to how you mentioned. First, before we had our team, I started out alone. It was just me, and I knew I wanted to build it with other people, and so it was really hard. Like you said, it was really hard to find the right people. And I didn't want to just work with anybody that was interested. I wanted to work with talented people. I wanted to work with friendly people that I liked being around, because you spend a lot of time together with whoever you end up doing your business with. And so what I did is I went to a lot of events and conferences and clubs, stuff like that, where I thought people of similar interests and skills would be in attendance. And when I would go to those events, I would try to meet everyone I possibly could. And finally, you know, over time, again, it took me about 8 months to find the right people. Finally, I was able to meet people who were talented, friendly, I liked being around, and that had similar interests. And then once I found them, then it was some more time to kind of win them over, persuade them to join me, and really convince them that it was going to be worth their time. Because they were talented people, they could have gone and gotten other jobs at Google and made, you know, $200,000 a year because they're really talented people. So for me to convince them, come join me and I will pay you $0 for the first year, but then we can make money after that, was really difficult and took a lot of convincing. But if you find people that are entrepreneurial enough and like to take that risk and kind of have a similar vision to you, then even though it's hard, once you find them, it'll work. And then the last thing I would say is you talked about having an idea and kind of the fear of people stealing your idea. And I think that's really unfortunate, because a lot of people have a lot of good ideas, and the idea isn't the important part. The important part is being able to take that idea and turn it into an actual product or business that is successful. And that's why I think it's sad, because there's so many good ideas out there, and whoever can make it come to life should build it and make it come to life. And that's why even when I mention, let's see if I can pull it back up, when I say a QR reader that I want them to do well and I want them to succeed, I really mean that, because I think the world needs the best app to scan QR codes that they could possibly have. And if we do the best job, then good for us. We deserve to have, you know, some success. But if they do a better job, then good for them, because now they took, you know, our idea and they gave it to the world in the best way possible. And so, yeah, just to summarize, the idea isn't the important part. Executing and bringing it to life is the difficult part, and so that's the more important part. It's a good question.
How about this first one? It's the one that has a high traction. How do you get that initial high traction coming in?
Yeah, good question. So we, this will sound a little bit crazy, but we have 25 million downloads and we have spent $0 on marketing our product. Even though we raised the $1.7 million from investors, we've decided not to spend any of that on marketing, and we spend all of that on the team and paying salaries and building a good company. But as far as marketing, we had the motto that we should design and build a product so popular, so valuable, that it'll market itself. I think a good example of that is Facebook, where if you're on Facebook, you can think to yourself, and anyone else listening can think to themselves, did they see a TV ad for Facebook? Did they see a billboard for Facebook? Right? Did they see any sort of advertisement for Facebook? And I'm sure the answer is no. Most of us heard about Facebook because our friends told us about it, or our parents or someone in our family told us about it. And it's because they built such a valuable product that it marketed itself. And so, I mean, that's a lot harder to do and a lot easier said than done. But that was our motto. So again, when we built Scan, we focused on quality, we focused on design, we gave it a really good name so that when anybody around the world saw either a QR code and barcode and wanted to scan it and they searched their phone to download an app, that when they saw our icon and when they saw our screenshots and when they saw our 5-star review, it would be a very easy choice for them to download it. So when we put it into the App Store, our very first night we had 2,000 downloads. I remember because that same night I had gone to a party and I was I was literally up on the table telling everybody to download my app. I was so excited that we had an app in the App Store. And I think at the party I got 12 people to download it. And then I go back to meet with my co-founders, and I was all excited, hey guys, I got 12 people to download our app. And they looked at me and laughed because they said, you haven't checked the analytics, we just got 2,000 downloads our first night. So we had 2,000 our first night, 5,000 our second night, and it continued to grow until we were getting about 1 download a second, or 83,000 downloads a day. So it grew quick from the beginning and then just kind of continued to gain momentum from there.
Oh, okay. Great. Thanks, Jared.
Wow. Those are some mind-boggling stats, Garrett. Our next person asking question is Chris Coleman. Chris Chris is in San Diego, California, and he has a question for you. In your opinion, would you suggest startups in the e-commerce market prioritize mobile over web?
So the question again, should startups should they prioritize mobile over web? I would say yes. I really would. You look at companies like Path or Instagram. I mean, Instagram, they were around over 2 years before they even created a website. Path is almost just as old, if not older, and they still don't have a website. So you can see, at least not a website that is their actual product. And yeah, I mean, just think about your own lives, like how much of the time when you're out and about are you looking at your phone, or how much of the time are you looking at like your laptop? And at least for me, I mean, I work behind a computer screen and I still look at my phone more than I'm looking at my computer screen. And so I think that's going to be a big trend, and I would definitely say to prioritize on mobile. And the last argument for it that I'll mention is, as I've done my traveling around the world, I've seen that maybe not everybody can afford to have their own personal laptop, but everybody, everywhere I go, even like rich countries, poor countries, old people, young people, everybody now has a mobile device in their hand. Everyone has their own cell phone. So I'd definitely begin with mobile first.
Great. Hello. I'm Walter from Chile. I'm also one of the mentors of the YAN network. First, congratulations again. I have 3 questions. One, is this your first startup company, or have you been participating in other ventures before?
So this is my first funded venture. Yeah, I've done other kind of startups or projects, I guess you could say, before. If you go to my personal website, there's a link called Ventures, and you can see like this first one is Capital G Design. It was a graphic design free agency that I started. QR Code City is actually the original name of Scan before it became Scan. Business Premier League is a business versus business soccer league that I started in my hometown. Donna's Vintage Signs is a website where I was selling vintage signs. So you can see, and then now Scan. So you can see there's quite a few different things that I had worked on before, but Scan was the first time I had taken a product and went out and raised money and actually got it funded.
Okay. Our next question is from Colby.
Yeah, thank you. I have 2 more. Sorry, I have 3. I'm going to do the 2 at the same time. So did you focus then mainly on that great design of the product and then going after capital, or it was at the same time you were juggling with the 2? And the third is a little bit technical. So if I, for example, have an existing QR code that is already printed on my products, and then can I use your app to redirect that code, or I will have to print a new code?
Okay, so the first question is, did we focus more on designing and creating the product, or did we focus first on raising money? And we had the privilege, or I guess the blessing, that we weren't going to starve, we weren't going to die if we didn't get money right away. We could continue. I mean, we were young students. We could live off of noodles and water and rice for long enough that we didn't need money right away. And so what we did is we focused more on the product, because the more successful of a product you can build and the more traction and users you can gain, then the better you'll be able to do when you go out and meet with investors. So yeah, we focused on product first. And then your second question, if you create a QR code on the Scan website, and you say you place it on a product, you place it on a business card, you can at any time then go to your management dashboard and redirect where that code is going. So this top one is on my business card, and it follows me on Twitter. But if I want to change that, then I can edit it, switch it to a different QR code type, so then go to my website or whatever I want it to do, and then I can scan that same QR code on the business card that had already been printed, say, a month ago, and it'll still work. So if you create it originally within the Scan website, you can redirect it at any time. If you created a QR code on a different website long before, you cannot redirect that. You cannot change it through the Scan website. Our iPhone app will still read it and scan it, but you can't redirect it and change the contents. You'd have to create a new QR code on the Scan website. Good questions, though.
Okay, thanks, Walter. We have lots of questions, so we're going to have to ask everyone to just ask one question so we can get to everyone. The next question is from Armand Jean-Louis Bois. Jean-Louis, you should be able to speak now. Please tell us where you're based and what your question is. Okay, it sounds like we can't hear Jean-Louis. So Jean-Louis, please put your question in the chat. And in the meantime, we'll take a question from Colby Swanson. Colby is asking, how do you think large corporations outside of the tech companies are doing at embracing social media platforms within their own employees? What can they do better?
So one more time, can you repeat that? How are large corporations doing what?
doing at embracing social media platforms? This is from within their own employees. Are they doing well enough? What can they do to improve? Aside from
let's see. I think that's on a company by company basis, because you can look at some big companies like Nike, and Nike does a fantastic job. I follow like 10 different Nike accounts on Twitter. I follow all of them on Instagram. Like, I'm all over it because Nike, to me, does such a good job of talking about their own brand and their own products, but also they spotlight a lot of my favorite athletes and just even like average everyday people who care about getting fit and being healthy in our athletics. So Nike does a really good job. But then you look at a company like, say, Intel or Cisco or I don't know, there's a lot of them, and I would say they don't do a good job. So really, I mean, just how there's some like small companies that do it good and some that do it bad, it's the same thing with big corporations that do it really well and some that do it bad. The other one on top of Nike that I think has always done a good job is Disney and Pixar. They've always done a really good job of embracing their community and being very interactive.
And do you have any like suggestions or ideas on how large companies can do better on using social media?
As far as big companies, I would say big companies need to realize that their customers, in most instances, are individuals, are real people, and they need to kind of like go from like big company level and get down on a real person level and have real conversation with them. And so, like even today, a popular business magazine, Fast Company, they have a Facebook page, and on their Facebook page they ask, what would you change about your boss? And I thought that was really interesting because it was a question that like so many people, so many employees around the world could think about, talk about, answer. And so by just asking a simple question, that big company, a Fast Company magazine, was able to get on the ground level and really interact with people on a ground level personal basis. So yeah, I guess to summarize, just realize that your customers are real people and interact with them as real people instead of just this like robot giant corporation that doesn't have a soul.
Okay. Our next question is from Armand Jean-Louis Bois. He's based in Côte d'Ivoire. And he read an interview of yours, Garrett, where you said to focus less on school and more on education. And he was curious to know what you meant by that.
Yeah, so to re-quote it, I said it's more important to focus on education and less important to focus on school. And I want to be careful because I'm not I don't know the education system in every country, obviously perfectly well, but at least from where I come from, there's a lot of emphasis on getting your degree, getting your kind of stamp of approval, getting your certificate that says you completed it. And so a lot of even my close friends say they'll focus on a test and they'll study really hard for a test, not necessarily to learn the content and to learn the new tools or skills in education, but because they want that letter grade, they want that stamp of approval, they want to get an A+, and they think that's what will help them get a job. And especially here in the US, that's starting to change where if somebody graduates and they have a degree, they got, all A+, they got really good grades, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that they're going to get a job. What does get you a job is if you have really good education, meaning you actually learned things and you're very smart and you learn real skills and you can go into a business and actually help add real value to that business. That's what companies want to see. And the reason why I feel very strongly about it is because I mentioned I do have a lot of friends that focus on getting really good grades and work really hard. And it's been sad for me to see them, after all of their hard work, graduate and then not be able to find a job. I think that's really sad, especially because they were just trying to do what they thought and what they told was right, what they were told was right. And so for me personally, I decided rather than just focus on my tests and my grades, I'm going to focus on getting the actual best knowledge and skills I possibly can while in school so that I can either go out and get a really good job or create a company and create jobs of my own.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that answered Jean-Louis' question. In fact, he just confirmed it did. Our next question is a rather long one from Joanna Ramos Romero. She's based in Baltimore and she works for an NGO called International Youth Foundation. And she said that her program works with people based in different countries, and sometimes internet connectivity is a problem. So social media is really used more for social reasons rather than professional or business purposes. And she asked, taking this into account, many of the youth in their programs are relatively new to social media. What would be your top 3 tips for new young entrepreneurs looking into using social media for their businesses in these contexts?
So one would be what I mentioned earlier about finding good examples and learning from them. And so, you know, if one of her students or somebody that she's mentoring is starting a business in the restaurant or the cafe industry, then I would suggest finding other popular cafes or restaurants and liking or following them on social media sites, and so they can get a feel for what do they do and what do they do that's good, what do they do that's bad, so that they can learn from that and then kind of follow suit. And then the other thing I'd mention is when you're learning and just getting started, you'll feel like a very small fish in a big pond where everybody else has, you know, 1 million followers, or everybody else has like 10,000 likes on their page, and you just have your like 25 friends and family. But what I would say is you got to start somewhere, and it's better to start with a small group of people that really do care about your business, and then take baby steps to grow from there so you can have a really strong community and culture. Because at the end of the day, even though so many people feel and just kind of it's human nature to want the big numbers of a lot of followers and a lot of people liking your business, what is actually important and what your real goal should be is to develop a strong community, whether it be big or small, that is helping you grow the, you know, the success of your business or product.
Okay, thanks Garrett for all those really interesting answers you gave to the wonderful questions people asked.
Yeah, great questions.
It looks like people did find that very useful. We've run over time, but it was hard to stop asking questions when there were so many good questions coming from everybody. I would just like to do a quick bit of follow-up for next week. Hopefully you can see my screen. So if you have more questions for Garrett, you can reach him on his Twitter account, or you can go to his webpage, scan.me/GarrettGee. You can see a recording of this webinar and all the other webinars from tomorrow onwards. It'll be on here along with the rest. So if you want to share this this talk with anyone you know, or you want to look at it again, you can find everything on the Yen Marketplace website. And finally, you can also see everything on our Facebook page. So if you forget the website, just look up Youth Employment Network on Facebook. And before I leave you, I want to remind you to come back next week for our very last presentation. It will be with Magat Wad. Magat is a serial entrepreneur from Senegal, and she's an extremely successful young woman. Forbes named her one of the 20 youngest power women in Africa. And she'll be talking about how she raised money for her per different companies. Thanks everybody, that's all from me, and please come back next week.